I am a history buff, and I'm reminded of what happened about 2,000 years ago in the desert surrounding Egypt, when Mark Antony, the leader of the Roman legions, went into Cleopatra's tent and said, "Cleo, I'm not here to talk." But I am. I promise Dan that I'll only be up here 2 hours. Is that all right? Mike, Tony, everybody, Teddy? My congratulations to Jenny and her 42 heirs of Pepper Martin that have attended today. Think about that, 42 members. And Big Mac, I am so proud to go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame with you. I mean, what a thrill it is. I remember some 14 years ago, on September 8th, 1998, when Joe Buck, Bob Brindley, and I brought you that remarkable moment that evening when Mark surpassed Roger Maris with home run number 62. And where did he go after he circled the bases and picked up his son? He went to visit the Maris family seated behind the third base dugout on the first base side. And he was there for at least 10 minutes. That gesture and 15 minutes with Tony La Russa will tell you all you need to know about what kind of man Mark McGwire is. You could say my career was kind of poetic justice, as this A.E. Housman poem suggests. Maybe you're familiar with the words. When I was 1 in 20, I heard a wise man say, "Give gold and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away." I got to tell you, when I was 1 in 20, I'd been with the Cardinal organization for 4 years, and believe me, I'd given my heart, my body, and my soul to St. Louis baseball. But I still couldn't make it to the big leagues. This was my first full year. It was to be my first full year. I was out of waivers. It was a tense time. It was very hard. It didn't come easily. In fact, during the winter meetings of 1961, there were only 2 people in the organization who thought I could be a major league catcher at this level. Buddy Lewis, the scout that signed me, and Eddie Stanky, the farm director. So I had to produce or else. No excuses, and show that I belonged in a big way. It was Stan Musial's last year, 1963, and finally my first. And I thrived, and I loved it. We won 19 out of 20 games in September of that year, but lost to the Dodgers, who ultimately were world champions, beating the Yankees 4 in a row. But the next year, 1964, a lot of good things happened. We won the pennant on the last day of the season, beat the Yankees in October, and were off. We won again in 1967 and 68. I mean, by the time I was 26, I'd played in 3 World Series, and I thought, man, this is great. Almost a World Series every year. The game has a way of keeping you honest. And certainly that was the case with me. I never played in another World Series. 13 more years. Boy, were those teams special. Those teams of the 60s. If you were lucky enough to have seen them play, we were really good. I mean, really good. I mean, you run out of superlatives when you talk about the men who have, with integrity, intelligence, and gritty determination, represented those remarkable teams. Kenny Boyer, our captain. Bill White, who would eventually become the National League president. Dick Groat, the Duke All-American in basketball. Curt Flood, who took the first step toward free agency in the trade that coincidentally I was involved in after the 1969 season. And I've said this on many occasions, the guy that made our team click in 67 and 68 was Mike Shannon when he moved to third base from right field. If that doesn't happen, we don't win. Julian Javier, who to this day, I don't think he was ever taken out in a double play, ever. The irrepressible Lou Brock. Lou. The incomparable number 45, Bob Gibson. The MVP that year, Orlando Cepeda. And I'll tell you how important Orlando Cepeda was. Bob Gibson was starting at Shea Stadium in New York one evening. The bus was supposed to leave at 5 o'clock. Red said, the manager was seated in the first seat, as always, and Red said, "Bussy, let's go." And Bob said, "Wait a minute. Is Orlando on the bus?" And we all looked around, and we couldn't find him. And Bob said, "This bus isn't leaving without Cepeda." And we didn't. 5 or 10 minutes later, Orlando showed up, and Bob said, "Now we can go." For 2 years, I think St. Louis fans saw how good Roger Maris was in right field. And then a couple of years later, Orlando Cepeda was traded for who else? Joe Torre. And what a brilliant career he had, and is still continuing to have. And then decades and years beyond, Bob Forsch, great right-handed pitcher. The wizardry of Ozzie Smith. What a player. And Willie McGee, who may be the most popular player in the history of Cardinal baseball. And of course, the leaders of those groups, Red and Whitey and Tony. And while being taught the game, and nobody taught it like the Cardinals, the likes of George Crowe, without George Crowe's help in 1961, I wouldn't have made it to the majors. And George Kissel. And from George Kissel, I learned how to think the game, talk about the game, and pass it on. Now I am 75, I'm proud to say. And I've tried to do just that, pass it on. I have shared the broadcasting booth with the greatest voices in the history of American sports. Dick Enberg, Al Michaels, Ralph Kiner, Keith Jackson, Jack Buck, Sean McDonough, and for 18 years with Fox Sports, the great Joe Buck. But I gotta tell you, I have never been happier in the broadcast booth than working with Dan McLaughlin over the last 5 years. So many people. These players and these broadcasters will continue to be forever etched in my mind. Like the Godfather said, I don't forget. My enduring thanks to the DeWitts. Believe me. My many friends along the way, and to you, everybody here today, and everybody that will be in the ballpark tonight, and your staggering loyalty. It's your encouragement and support that makes us continue to want to come back for more and more and more. Thank you.